Hey, it's Liz from No Trace, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a little utensil holder that you can keep your fork, spoon, and knife in, and keep it in your purse or your backpack so that you always have a utensil when you're on the go and your utensils don't get all dirty kind of floating in the bottom of your bag. So one of the ways to really cut your waste when you're out and about is to be prepared with your own fork or spoon or knife so you can say no thank you to the plastic single-use disposable utensils. So one way that we do that in my family is that I keep utensils in my purse when we're out and about. Now that we're in COVID times, we're not really getting a lot of food on the go, but it still really comes in handy to have this little set with you and to be prepared. And another great thing about this pouch is that you can adjust the size of it to fit any utensil that you have that you want to keep in your bag. So I'm going to show you how to measure the material so that you get a utensil pouch that fits perfectly for whatever it is you want to carry with you. You could adjust it for a straw as well, or just a fork and a spoon or a spork or whatever you want to carry with you. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and let's go. For this tutorial, you need fabric scraps, and it works great with longer, thinner scraps. And I will show you how to measure your scraps of fabric in a minute. Obviously, you need some thread. And of course, you need the utensils that you want to carry in your bag. And the cool thing about this design is that you can use it to hold many different sizes of utensils, but you want to pick the biggest utensil that you might use, that you might carry with you in your bag, and use the longest one for your measurements. Okay? You're also going to need a chopstick or a pencil to turn your bag around, some pins, some way to measure, so measuring tape, or if you have one of these quilting mats, that works too. You'll need some scissors and your machine and your iron. I like to keep utensils in my purse, just a little set, and sometimes I use forks and spoons and knives from the thrift store, and sometimes I use little camping size utensils or little bamboo sets. But like I said, for this project, use the largest utensil that you might keep in your bag to take the measurements. So what you want to do is you want to measure the length of your utensil. So this utensil is 8 inches from top to bottom. You want to multiply that by 2. So 8 times 2 is 16 inches, and then you want to add 2.5 inches to that number. So that means that we need fabric that measures 18.5 inches for our utensil pouch. So, and the width of the fabric is 4 inches. Whatever the length is, your width is still going to be 4 inches. So I have 2 scraps of fabric that are 4 inches wide and 18.5 inches long because of the length of my fork. So this is going to end up being large enough to keep the fork inside there, but it'll also work with all my smaller utensils too. Now, if some of your scraps aren't quite long enough, obviously you can stitch together different scraps. So this one wasn't quite long enough, so I added a little bit more length to this scrap of fabric. So 2 pieces of fabric that are 4 inches wide, and then the measurement of your utensil times 2 plus 2.5 inches. So the first step is that we are going to place these 2 scraps of fabric with right sides facing and pin in a few spots. And then we're going to stitch all around, leaving an opening of about 2 inches on one of the long sides. This is pinned on all 4 sides. I did double pins to mark off where I want to stop and start my stitching so that I'll have an opening when I'm done to turn this around. So now I'm going to take this over to the machine. I'm going to stitch all the way around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I've stitched all around the utensil holder, the 2 pieces of fabric facing each other, leaving an opening. And I made sure to do a back stitch at the start and the stop. So now you can trim some of the excess fabric off of the seam that you made and a little bit off the corners too. And you might want to just cut it down maybe to about 1/4 inch. I finished trimming the extra fabric off around all 4 sides. And if you use an all-natural material like cotton, which I used a blend of organic cotton and regular conventional cotton, if you're using cotton fabric and cotton thread, you can put these scraps right into your compost or save them. If it's not cotton, you can also save it for stuffing a pillow or a dog bed in the future. There's also folks who will take your little scraps and turn it into art yarn, so you can find someone to do that for you online. Or if you have fabric recycling near you, obviously you can recycle these. So in the next step, we're going to turn our material right side out through the opening that we left. And this is where your pencil or your chopstick will come in handy. So I like to get as far as I can with my hands and then break out the chopstick and just gently push into those corners. You don't need to go crazy on it, but you do want to try to make a fairly right corner there. And the other side. Here we go. I've had this fabric, this print fabric, for probably about 15 years. And it's finally being used. It was just a little scrap in my scrap bin. And now it's gonna be turned into this little pouch. All right, so it's turned right side out. I got those corners more or less pushed out, and you can trim off or just pull off any extra threads. After it's right side out, you're gonna wanna take it over to your iron and press out those seams. Try to get a nice crisp edge all the way around your bag. So I've ironed the seam, and I also made sure to iron in that opening so those edges are folded over and pressed neatly. So in the next step, we're going to be folding our fabric to get it to the shape of a little utensil pouch. But I want to just mention, if you have a print with a direction on it, so for example, this little scrap of bicycle fabric, if I were using this print, which has a clear, upside down and right side, you want to start by folding the bottom edge down 1.5 inches. And then you fold the top edge to overlap by 1/2 inch. And that way, when you turn it right side out, the bikes are going to be running in the correct direction. Okay, so starting at the bottom edge of your print, fold it down or up, I guess, depending on how you look at it, 1.5 inches, then bring the top edge and overlap it 1/2 inch. Okay. Now this print doesn't have a direction, so it doesn't really matter where I start folding. But I'm going to start here, fold it down 1.5 inches, and just press it with my finger then bring up the bottom edge, overlap it 1/2 inch with the top edge, and then pin it. And I'm going to pin it on both sides in a few different spots. And it's a little bit bulky, but that's actually going to be nice for your finished utensil holder, because it'll kind of keep the utensils from poking through the bag in your purse or your backpack or wherever it is. Okay, so I've pinned just on the open sides, and in the next step, I'm gonna stitch straight down this side and straight down this side, and I'm gonna stitch with 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm gonna make sure to back stitch at the start and the stop of my seam. Okay, so I've sewn down both sides of my little pouch, and I trimmed the loose threads. So the last step is to turn it right side out and make sure that you did it right. And this again is where you might want to use your chopstick to really get down in there. And I guess be kind of gentle. You don't have to be as gentle as you did earlier, because now you've got pretty well reinforced fabric, especially on these corners. But you don't want to go crazy with your chopstick here. Okay. So all the corners are poked out, and if you really wanted to, you could press it, but since this is just going to be in your bag kind of holding stuff together, you don't need to do that. So now comes the great test. So flip it open. I like to stick my thumbs in that flap, flip it over, get my fork, and make sure it closes over the fork. And it does. Yay, it fits. Now I can show you how it works with smaller utensils too. So these are little camping size, which I actually kind of prefer to keep these in my bag just because they're a little bit smaller and lighter. So all 3 of them are in there. Get that flap folded over, and now you can shake it and they should stay inside because you've got a nice little overlap there. So they're not gonna, even though they're a lot smaller, they're not gonna fall out of your pouch. You did it! Well, that's all there is to it. I hope that you had fun making your own utensil pouch and that you make a bunch of these so that you are always ready when you're out on the go and don't need to get the plastic disposable utensils. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the No Trace channel to find out about my videos as they get released. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.